Alright, what's up y'all? My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. Today is the 3rd of October 2025. This is our main site. I'll get into it, talk about it as I do, right? Each of the 4 sides of In The Image Clothing Company I'll mention. We'll talk about where clothing sits, and then we'll really get into this discussion here because this video's title is The Importance of Even Pant Side Seams. It's something I talk about often, something we've got to have. Even side seams to our pants, just meaning evenness and everything to the body, but we'll get into it, just the seams on the side of our pants and why it's so important to be as intentional as we can be to keep those seams even. Okay, so in the Image Clothing Company's main side, we'll start there. What we do is allow the human body to work. We do it through clothing. It's the only thing placed physically on us. We have to allow the human body to work. We talk about all things though: standing, eating, walking, sleeping, breathing, sitting, hydration, everything we do as a human being. We discuss the anatomy of the human body in depth. And the thing with the human body is there's a center line to it. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and our jaw, naturally stabilizing the entire body on Earth's gravity. We have to mesh that with Earth's center of gravity that it pulls down on everything with. So clothing has to stay centered, fit correct, where I'll discuss here in a minute, and be made from, in all the ways that we can, 100% natural materials, because the human body is natural as well. Okay, so we give a lot of free modifications. We talk about just the body alone, even aside from clothing, just how it works, keeping everything in its neutral position, right? Like this wrist here, there's a neutral straight out from the pinky finger when we follow the forearm. Keeping our bodies in their neutral, then we have motion outside of that. That's how the entire body works when we allow it to stay centered. So yes, modifications that we have for clothing will allow that to happen, that we give freely. We will always have good clothing in the Image Clothing Company clothing, staying centered, fitting correct, being made from 100% natural materials, doing all the things that's required to allow the body to work on InTheImageClothingCompany.com. Okay, so there's a lot of what we do here on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. We've got 3 other sides. One of them is In The Image Clothing Company Poodles. We do the same thing as what we do for the human body, but we do it for dogs. We specialize in purebred standard poodles, but we give information that does apply to all dogs. We breed poodles, registering them properly and advocating for doing so. We register our dogs to give them birth certificates, to keep less dogs in shelters and more dogs at homes. We talk about letting dogs stay natural in all the ways that we do though. Being in a modern man-made world, our dogs can get altered just the same as us human beings. And so feeding, hydration for dogs, things like us interacting with our dogs as owners, holding leashes to not alter our bodies, and keeping collars centered. A video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, something we have to do for ourselves as human beings because there's musculature going through the collars of our tops. But then same thing with our dogs, and often dog collars are very uncentered and damaging the dogs, right? So leashes, collars, harnesses, similar things like this we will always have as products that you can purchase within the Image Clothing Company's human being clothing as well on InTheImageClothingCompany.com. And events, okay? Along with any event we ever do under In The Image Clothing Company, one of the main things we will always be doing event-wise, because In The Image Clothing Company Poodles is such a huge part of what and who we are. Yes, Poodle Parade events here in the state of Utah, the United States of America, under In The Image Clothing Company Poodles. Come, involve yourself. An episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast is titled Involve Yourself, but bring your purebred poodles of any size or poodle mixes of any size here to the state of Utah, United States of America. A lot of them will be in the mountains, in water areas like rivers, at parks, wherever it is, just in nature. Hangouts, essentially, like family reunions, if you will. Having a good time. I'll give a lot of information on us interacting with our dogs, but also letting dogs stay natural and just, having a lot of fun. The dogs are a huge part of what we do, and you'll see that as time progresses. We specialize in the big dogs, standard size, but there's reasons for that. It's kind of why I'm saying that. A lot of what we do when it comes to interacting with our dogs and the information we give there under In The Image Clothing Company Poodles. I'm 6'2" tall, for example. I'm a pretty tall person. interacting with a small dog can really damage our body as the owner and make it a harder thing for us to do emotionally, physically, and we can get upset with our dogs more than we would need to because we're being in physical pain trying to get down to our dogs. So that's one of the big reasons we specialize in standard size poodles under In the Image Clothing Company poodles, okay? We've got two other sides in the Image Clothing Company podcast where we have deep discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're on episode 163 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast as of last night. We get into it. Blunt, bold, raw, real, In the Image Clothing Company style, if you will, right? Like this, just real. Discussing life as it is, discussing our God, Jesus the Christ, is who we are all designed in the image of. We're all human beings placed on the same earth. We have one universal God who designed us and this place, and we just discuss it as it is, imperfectly, because we're not perfect, but it's a great place for a lot of insights on life, okay? In the Image Clothing Company music, another one of our fourths, we do a lot there, gearing music around the gospel of Jesus Christ. I show sizing and setup of guitars to not alter things like that neutral wrist that then can't have our fingers tracking in line if our wrists are altered on the angles that we play guitars in. So that's a lot of what I do, as well as placing music that I've made there, and we allow the body to work through making music. I do lyricism, freestyling, rap type spoken word poetry, and metronome madness is one of the ways that I do that. We're on episode 29 of Metronome Madness as of the last one we did. Check these things out if you'd like. There's a little rundown on each of the four sides of our company in the Image Clothing Company. Now, for everybody, because there's only one way the human body could ever work, being just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, our clothing has to sit in the same location. Our pants, if you are a man or a woman, tall or short, skinny or fat, any age or from any part of the earth, any time period to ever be, you're just a human being. And our pants need to be entirely above our hips with the waistband, so they're not restricting the functionality of our hips. With our pants there at our natural waist, where we bend side to side at our spine, they need to be slightly higher in the front than in the rear, because that's how we keep our musculature contracted, activated, right? Musculature only contracts, meaning getting shorter. And that's one of the things in clothing, stretch. It's new, just decades old from today's date back, and it goes the opposite direction of the only way that muscles could ever work, okay? Muscles can only shorten, so stretching the body in itself is damaging as well. We just need to reside in those neutrals, okay, in everything in the body. Stretch in one direction and you're actually opposing the center line. We just have to stay in the center, or neutral, right? Neutral, natural, normal, synonyms within the human body's functioning. We talk about it as it is, and in depth, right? Where we don't have opinions to these things that I make that sound like bold claims that don't really seem correct, depending on who you are and where you're coming from, okay? So there's our pants. Our tops need to sit where our top seams on our shoulders are evenly behind the peak of our shoulders. Our shoulders only ever work behind our head. That's just where they connect mechanically, and they will follow the shoulder seams, okay? The edges of our tops have shoulders as well. Wait, no, that is not the case. The edges of our tops have seams as well. They need to mesh as close as we can get just to the edges of the functionality of our shoulder, where the arm bone meets the collarbone and the scapula. That's a joint that needs to be meshing with the joint of the top material and the sleeve material, and then our bodies can just be unaltered. It's windy, it's fall time here in Utah, there's noise going on. I'm getting these videos out as I am, when I am, and they are what they are, okay? And we are who we are, and that's the point. Blunt, bold, raw, real in the Image Clothing Company, that's what I say, okay? So two things we have as prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company to not alter the body. Firstly, we're just weaving ropes across our feet. We call them shoelaces, okay? There's only one way we can shape a shoelace, the way that the mechanics of the feet work. Tendons connecting musculature to bones, the bones connecting to each other through ligaments, gripping arches inward in our feet, opposing the center line of the body and keeping us vertical on Earth's gravity. There's only one way that happens, and that's what we title In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique. We also tie shoes as well. just to keep them on, we have to tie shoes evenly over toward the center line of the body on both sides, just because there is opposite sides to the center line. Okay, one thing, as I mention often, that I didn't do until I was 24 years old, I was tying shoes unevenly, and that rotates your entire body to the tip of your head and the tip of your hands, your fingertips. Okay, from your feet, just having a rope around them, tying knots, twisting the body, okay, from one side to the other. And then secondly, our other prerequisite under In The Image Clothing Company is to remove all tags from clothing. Anywhere tags are placed within clothing, they're either causing a physical gap, changing the body's only working position, and or just not allowing musculature to activate. Then you've got compensation trying to happen in the body, and it can't, because it all has a role to play. Okay, it can't make up for another role when it has a role. When we talk about anything in the body that could have a function, because everything's there for a reason. Okay, so here we are. The importance of even pant side seams. I've talked about this often, right? We just talk about the importance of even blank. Things like insertions of musculature to the body. I'll just mention a few insertions, and the titling is the importance of even, and then we say these. The winds have changed, holy cow. Under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, sternocleidomastoid insertions, lat insertions, the latissimus dorsi, right? Pinky fingers, Achilles tendon insertions, short sleeves, that's not the body itself, but that will affect the body. Forearm rotations, right? We have these videos under the importance of even when you look under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, and more, whatever else we do have. But the importance of even pant side seams will affect the body just in the ways that anything else like this, that there are two sides of the body with or in, could affect the body if they're not even. Okay, so the side seams of our pants, just meaning the seams that come down the outsides of our pants, down our legs, on the outside of our hips. Well, we have hips. That's one place we can start. The pelvis, it has a structure. When we talk about the lats, right, the latissimus dorsi muscle that comes down from the rear of the upper arm bone across the whole back, connecting to the lower vertebrae of the spine, and then the crest, or like rounding to the rear of the pelvis on both sides of the body. They're really large muscles, and they can get really altered if the pelvis's positioning is altered. Okay, the pelvis's positioning goes into things like the feet, and it goes into things like the shoulders. Okay, the hips are the center of the body. On the sides of the hips, we have these crests, right? The right pelvis crest, a video we have under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. I'll explain why, specifically the right side, because with the crests of our pelvis, we have those side seams of our pants coming down, where we're going to have the peak of this side of the pelvis crest on each side. And the pelvis crests will rotate like this, depending on if they're altered, because we've got positions of the pelvis like it coming forward, which is anterior, it tucking underneath, which is posterior, and then we've got rotations where if we externally rotate the right side and internally rotate the left side of the hips, traveling down to the feet. The hips are essentially the feet, as the shoulders are essentially the hands, right? They stem from somewhere. So these rotations coming from the pelvis down to the feet can be coming from those side seams of our pants, not sitting evenly on the sides of the crest of our pelvis. So if you've got side seams of your pants where the right side comes forward and the left side stays behind, now your pelvis will rotate like this, where you'll have external rotation down your whole right leg to your foot, and then internal rotation down your whole right leg to your foot from your hips. Okay, because just picture the sides of the pelvis coming up and rounding. When we say crest, picture like cresting over a hill, or like this mountain behind me in the video. There's a crest. That's how the sides of the pelvis are shaped. And so having a waistline that's not lining up with the side seams of the pants, following down the sides of the peak of those pelvis crests, it will alter the positioning that the pelvis will sit in. And then we've got musculature connecting from our abdominal area here down into our pelvis. We've got those latissimus dorsi muscles coming down, connecting to our pelvis. Things like the quadratus lumborum, which are lower back muscles that connect into the pelvis. We've got in our legs muscles in the front called flexor muscles, muscles in the rear called extensor muscles, right? We've got flexion of the leg forward, we've got extension of it behind our body, and then we've got both pulling the legs in, which is adduction, and then pushing the legs out, which is abduction. All these muscles come into the pelvis, and if it's not sitting neutral, like we say, right? Neutral, natural, normal, synonyms under In the Image Clothing Company, then we will have rotations going to the extremities of our bodies, not just down to our feet from our hips when it comes to uneven side seams in our pants, but from the hips up to the shoulders and out to the fingertips, rotating our arms, misaligning our jaw. All this can come from just the side seams of our pants not sitting evenly. And then what will happen is not only just them being on the crest of the pelvis, rotating the pelvis just because it's directly on them, if it's imbalanced, but traveling down to our feet, it will be just going down, right? The seams follow from where the waistband is all the way down to the ankles, where ideally our pants stop above our feet arches, okay, so our arches can grip. We have a video titled The Height of a Gripped Arch under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. And when our feet arches grip, they actually rise. So we need to keep our pant cuffs off of our feet, which is another video we have under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, how pant cuffs affect body mechanics. But if we have rotations going on down there, then that'll affect our ankles and our feet and rotate them from down there, and that can travel up to the hips and then again through the whole body. So this is the big thing as well though, is we've got these knee joints, okay, in between the ankles and the hips. Our knees have to track in line just like everything in the body, right? There's a neutral position where the knees will track in line, and if they're not allowed to, then the rotations in our lower legs, which is also a video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, rotations of the lower leg, will be altered, okay? The forearms and the lower legs, another video we have under our main side, okay? In the Image Clothing Company's main side. There's two bones in the forearm as well as down in the lower legs, and they have internal and external rotation, okay, from their neutral position. And so the elbow is essentially like the knee. And if we can picture needing to have the elbow track in line, well, the side seams of our pants going down on either side of our knee joint need to be even. Otherwise, the joint of our knee won't track in line because those seams will be rotating either the foot down at the bottom or the hips starting from the top. And then in between there, we also have to flex our knees, right? The knee bends and the side seams of the pants are on the knee joint, and they need to be directly on the sides of the knee joint where that knee would bend in line. Otherwise, even just standing or walking, our knees can be damaged from it. But imagine sitting, and you don't need to imagine it, but now that we can see just these seams on the sides of the knee joint, when you're sitting down, those side seams need to be able to flex, and if they're flexing off-centered from where the knee joint is, it'll tweak the whole knee. And as you're sitting with your knee bent within the pant leg when the seams are uneven, then you'll just have torsion happening on your knee joint. And so this can bring up a lot of problems that travels, again, not just from the knee being the problem, but up to the hips, down to the feet. And then anytime the feet are altered, supporting our whole body, the whole body's altered, but it also traveling up to the hips. If the hips are altered, well, the hips go down to the feet, the hips come up through the spine, to the shoulders, out to the hands. So, yikes, here comes the wind. So in everything that we do, we need to keep just the side seams of our pants lining up with the edges of our hip bones, right? The pelvis crests on the side, traveling down right on the side of the functionality of the knee joint so it can track in line. And then when we get down to our feet, ideally keeping the pant cuffs off of the feet so that the feet arches aren't altered, but also just focusing on having those side seams just go a straight line down from top to bottom, okay? Otherwise, you've just got rotation issues in the whole leg that travel through the whole body, and it's being like held or locked into a fixed position because these seams are just always placed on the outside of your legs. And so wherever those seams are hanging is the rotations that your legs will be doing. So let's say, yeah, there's an imbalance where the right side's farther back, the left side's farther forward. You're just going to have rotations throughout your whole legs that you're just stuck in because that's just the way that gravity is pulling down on your pants. And your whole body is within your pants. Really, your legs and your hips are, but then it travels through the functionality of all the mechanics of our body. And then vice versa, if you've got them going the opposite direction, right? Whichever side's forward or whichever side's back, it's just causing a rotation, moving the whole pelvis, moving the whole legs to the feet, and that's in everything in our entire lives. So there's some things that come with this besides just the side seams themselves. Things like how zippers affect body mechanics under In The Image Clothing Company's main side, right? Often we'll have zippers on the front of our pants, and there's this little flap behind the zipper, at least in almost every design nowadays with the zipper in the front of the pants, and that flap protects our bodies from the metal zipper, but then it gets stitched in, a little stitch gets placed down there, and that flap is closing off the left side of the pant leg. And so we talk about cutting that little stitch out so that flap can still be there, but it's not closing off one side of the pant leg and causing our body to be rotated. Because if we have anything like this, that, for example, or just one pocket on the rear of pant designs, that's a common thing to have. And it's usually the right because of the side that's stitched underneath of pants is the right, almost always. That in itself rotates the hips, okay? We talk about just even stitching, going around the crotch of pants or anywhere in the body, right? Just uneven stitching. We talk about In The Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification, like in our tops, coming down the sleeves and down the side seams of our tops. And ideally no side seams against our actual skin in our tops, right? But when there are side seams, not having things rotated, that's happening in the center of the rear of pants and then often double stitched. And so it rotates the hips anyway, putting the right rear of the body forward. And yeah, okay, there's a lot that goes into this. That's what we talk about within the right-handed world when we get into this right-handed patterning. That's a lot of what we do, getting out of these chronic patternings and scar tissue, which is the point of the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, allowing the body to work. You know, right-handed knots place the body in the same position in shoelaces or drawstrings, for example. Right-handed knots at both feet, twisting the body. Right-handed knot around the waist, twisting the pelvis forward or anterior and then to the left. These are all doing the same things as that zipper stitch, closing off the left side of the pant leg, okay? And as a pocket in the rear of the right side, essentially, because it's just more material there, it'll press the right rear of the pelvis forward, and then it'll rotate as well, just because it has to compensate with our feet fixed to the earth, right? There's no motion that can accommodate when our feet have to be on the ground. If our pelvis is altered, it'll have to just like rotate rather than coming off the ground, because we bend side to side at our natural waist or our spine where our pants sit, which is above our pelvis, okay? We can't bend side to side at the hips, or the feet would have to come off the ground, okay? And they can't. They're just fixed to the ground with just, you know, physical bones. So yeah, this is the thing with things like this, you know, any of these things that I just mentioned that are not causing the pants to be even. And then anything in pockets, that's more of an obvious thing, but as we say, just we can never have anything in our pockets, otherwise we just severely damage our hips traveling down to our feet and through our whole bodies. But any discrepancy like this will cause, in pants, the side seams to just move off out of a centered position, horizontal at the sides of the crests of our pelvis or hips, traveling down our whole body, which is Earth's gravity as well, just pulling them straight down, right? So just picture one side of the pant legs being closed off by that stitch in the zipper, just shortening the circumference of the left side of the pant leg, right? Now your right side will externally rotate, and that means coming forward, just that's what the hips would do. And that's the same thing as having the pocket on the right rear, pushing the hips forward on the right, the stitch on the right rear, pushing the hips forward on the right, meaning the stitch in the center being stitched where the right side is in front, rotating the hips forward on the right side, okay? And all of these things, like a drawstring knot right-handed, okay, how drawstrings affect body mechanics under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. We talked about the slipped lap knot, LAPP. Tie this tail end over toward the center line of the body to keep the waistline horizontal rather than tying one side of a rope over the other side, okay, and rotating the hips. So that's the thing, is you can have a centered pant design, but then tie a drawstring knot with one side over the other, and then you'll just be pulling on the material of the pants by just rotating that knot, and that will just cause the side seams to sit unevenly anyway, even if the pants themselves are designed, like measurement wise, even for the side seams to just be on the sides of our hips, okay, traveling down our legs, for our knees, for our ankles, for our feet arches, and through our whole body. So this is the thing, is there's a lot that comes with this. So there's a lot that we do under In The Image Clothing Company, okay? Each of the four sides of us, it's its own side, it's its own company. It's, in a sense, it's not separate, but meaning it could be. And yes. Each of the four sides of In The Image Clothing Company are their own entirely unique thing, but all encapsulated in what we are as a whole under In The Image Clothing Company. But within each of these little things that we talk about, it's really big. It's not only just trying to buy even pant designs, because it doesn't matter if you tie a knot that will rotate the pant design, or if you put something in your pocket that will rotate the pant design, right? Or if you know, have your pants just too long for you, where they're touching the tops of your feet, and then just being right-handed, if you bend your right knee more than your left, maybe, let's say, right, just reaching down, putting more force on the material of the right pant leg than the left, even with a centered even pant design, you'll potentially stretch out the material of the right side, and it'll sit on the top of your right foot, collapsing your right foot arch, okay, more than your left, as far as there might not be any effect to the left side, and then stretching the right side enough to where it touches the foot. Do you see what I mean? Stretching or just meaning wearing the material, right? Ideally no stretch in anything ever against our bodies. It goes the opposite way of our bodies working, right? Musculature connects to the center line. From the shoulder to the center here at the sternum on both sides, from the shoulder to the center of the spine on both sides, and I talked about musculature coming up from the legs, and then just Earth's gravity, right? A centered line. The need to lean left, right? Really what our video is titled is what it really means to lean left. I just referenced that because I kind of leaned left as I said it. We have to stay centered or contracted with our musculature to the center evenly on both sides in order to be able to lean to one direction rather than just being always stuck in the other direction in our right-handed world, because things like rotated pant side seams, okay? And even if there's not a rotation in the seam stitching, just them being uneven. But then we can come to that. In the Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification, what I've showed it as up until today's date was just in the tops of our clothing. The armpit seams and the side seams coming down our tops, which need to be even as well. Almost certainly we'll have a video just like this titled The Importance of Even Top Side Seams, okay? Just like this one, for the importance of even pant side seams, because it's the same level of importance and it's the same thing. You're just going to be rotating seams or not having seams sitting evenly, Okay, it's just as important, or maybe even more so in different ways, right? But everything's just as important in the human body. It's all there. But to focus on the evenness, okay, up here around our rib cage and our tops on our, from our shoulders, as it is on our hips down to our feet, right? Shoulders to the hands, hips to the feet. It's all got to be even. There's a center line to the body and Earth's gravity, okay, in the Image Clothing Company. The anatomy of the human body. I mean, this is what we do, meaning there are also rotated seams often in pant designs where the seam itself gets pinned down and stitched in a rotation once it meets the ends, right? Starting at the waistline, maybe they pin it down so it's against the waistband, stitch it, and then as it goes down the legs, it isn't really pinned down quite the same. And then once you get down to the ankles or the pant cuffs at the bottom, they rotate it and pin it down. It's almost always rotated to the right, okay, the right-handed world. Like I say, clothing designs themselves are right-handed. Even for those left-handed people, we still all live in the same right-handed world. And clothing designs get shipped across the earth, and they're almost always just about the exact same. Everything's so very similar is what I'm saying nowadays, because of the access that we have to being able to fly things and ship things across the earth, the internet, things we didn't have in the past. So much has become so much more universal across the earth, and there's not uniqueness to design quite the same as there would have been in the past. There's also just man-made things no longer being made by mankind personally, but the Industrial Revolution, okay? These things that make In The Image Clothing Company able to be what we are to the magnitude that we are in modern day. Machine stitch, meaning like robots, rather than human beings actually doing it by hand. So much clothing nowadays gets stitched by machines, and they'll just be on a conveyor belt where they'll rotate things. They'll do one side, spin it around to the other side the same direction, and it rotates the seams. We place those rotated seams onto our human bodies with a center line on Earth's gravity with a center of gravity, and then our bodies get rotated and damaged. We get into chronic patterning and scar tissue, and then enter, if you will, In The Image Clothing Company, okay? And we show how to get out of these patternings, how to allow the body to work, what's really happening, and we do a lot of other things as well, okay? So, there you go. I mean, that's what I'll say for this. There's a lot that comes with this. So notice it when you sit down, when you're standing, when you're walking. Like right now, I can look down the sides of my pants and the seams are just falling straight down evenly, sitting right at the edges of my hips, right? You've got this distinct edge to the hips. It kind of pokes out where those crests are going to be the most out on the sides, right? For lack of any other wording right now. But really that's where the legs are going to come up into. And when the legs are really gripping the ground, where open hips come from, a video under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company, it is our feet and those gripped open arches that then travel up to the hips. The bones of the upper leg actually rotate outward in the hip socket when, oh, that was inward on this left side, but they rotate outward, really opening our hips with those gripped arches. And then there's like this peak, if you will, I don't really know how else to word it right now, on the sides of our hips where they're the farthest out, and that's where our side seams should just sit so that they're not pulling our legs in, collapsing our feet arches from our hips. If those seams were too far forward on the hips or too far back, it would kind of be excessively opening our hips in a sense, right? So just keeping things on the body, just where the body works, right? And that's what I say and show when I talk about where clothing sits, right? Keeping short sleeves short, the importance of short sleeve, the importance of even short sleeves. These are videos we have as well under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. So there is a lot to this, and just being intentional. Not only standing, like I said, that's why I was mentioning I can look down right now and just see that my side seams are even on my pants from my hips down to my pant cuffs, okay? Just sitting right above the top of my high tops is where they are right now. So they don't alter my feet and ankles, right? Traveling up from there with pant cuffs sitting on the feet. Keep them off the feet, off the tops of your shoes as well if you wear high tops, because that's kind of the same thing as them being on your feet. But then there was a pocket on the right rear of these pants, like one of the things that I said that can cause rotations, and I took it off last night. I've worn these pants many times, and I haven't been so pleased with the way that my body isn't allowed to be centered within them. Having that singular pocket on the rear, on the right rear, like the right glute area, the rear pocket, it will twist the entire side seams on both sides of the pants down to the ankles, down to the pant cuffs at the bottom of our pants is the point. Because as we walk, our glute muscles, right, our hip bones on the rear, our sit bones, the rear of our pelvis as it comes down, our ischiums, right, back on the rear of the body, inside of our pants, where those pockets are, when we walk, our glutes press against the rear of our pants, okay? And when we sit, our sit bones, the ischiums, they need to sit evenly on what we're sitting on. Otherwise, if there's just a pocket on one side, it alters our pelvis. It doesn't only lift one side up, but then it'll rotate the pelvis because it has to accommodate, because the spine has to stay vertical and it connects down into the pelvis, so we can't have one side higher than the other without twisting our spine on Earth's gravity. So we have to rotate the pelvis to try to accommodate, okay? So this is really what's happening when it comes to this type of stuff, okay? Knee pain, feet unable to grip arches, hip pain, and then traveling up through the spine from the hips, shoulder pain, and not only from the hips, but traveling from the feet maybe even, with rotated pant side seams, sitting uneven pant side seams, pant discrepancies at all can affect the feet traveling up. Anyway, it'll go through the entire body, changing rotations, changing heights of things, right? The importance of even height shoulders is a video we have under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. Okay, there's a lot that happens from this. So I removed the pocket, is the point, on the rear of my pants here on the right side. And then now there's that even motion to the glutes as we walk, as we stand, even just standing with our glutes activated. Having that pocket material there will just alter the position the hips can sit against the pants with, changing the side seams, traveling down our whole legs, and rotating our whole body. Okay, so there's a lot to this. Things like coin pockets, which is common to have in jean designs. I just about never discuss jeans because it's not really something that would matter to discuss, because you almost can't even do enough modifications in most all modern jean design pants to get them to be centered enough to not really be altering your body. So I just don't even really talk about them. At least I haven't as of now, right up until today's date. So there you go, okay? The importance of even pant side seams, that's what this is, okay? Check us out too. Free modifications, like I said, you'll find on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. You'll never have to modify In The Image Clothing Company clothing for it to, have the intent of being centered and, fitting correct and just not altering the body. Being made from 100% natural materials, right? A lot of these things. Because that in itself, just stretch in material will just rotate the side seams or just move the side seams off. Like I was saying, just, if one side of the pants gets stretched more than the other side, then the material will just move, and then now that seam is not in the same location it was in the beginning. It's just how it is, okay? So stick around for the Poodles, Poodle Parade events. They will always be awesome. We'll have a lot of them. We, as In The Image Clothing Company Poodles, will have a lot of poodles, okay? It'll be awesome. Always. So much good information. A lot of it applies to all dogs, like I was saying, except for things that are poodle specific, like certain grooming things or temperament things that only would apply to poodles in the ways that they maybe would. Other than that, our information applies to just about all dogs, at least just about all of our information. And what we talk about with the anatomy of the human body, allowing the body to work, our slogan under our main side of In The Image Clothing Company, it applies to everybody, right? I like to catch the phrasing, everybody, anybody with a human body, right? Everyone on the earth. the information we give applies to you, whether you do have an amputation, deformity, birth defect, whatever it comes to being, and your body's slightly or maybe quite a bit different. We still have to accommodate for Earth's gravity, accommodate for the right-handed world, and we still have to breathe and just, you know, digest food. And right, our information applies to everybody. I mean, even if you're in a wheelchair, like I'm saying, right, paralyzed for life in some way, bedridden, if you're in pants, they still have to have even side seams, otherwise your whole body is being rotated and it's traveling up your whole body as well as down your whole body. Okay, so it is what it is. Stick around for the poodles. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Today is the 3rd of October 2025, and yeah, check out what we do on each of the 4 sides of us, right? Each of the other 3 in addition to this one if you'd like to. And there you go. We'll do a lot of informational stuff, a lot of things for the environment with poodles, but then also just in the ways that we do. Otherwise, if there are ways that we do it apart from poodles, we'll just always have poodles with us, just about always. And just the bulk of what we will always be doing under In the Image Clothing Company poodles will be huge. And so stick around for the poodles. I'm going to hit it and hit it and hit it and hit it and hit it, and you'll see why. Okay, so thank you.